thrilled to be talking with Steven Jackson, who's in our studio, does a terrific job analyzing the NBA all over ESPN. And this is our first time getting a chance to meet in person, so it's a delight to have you here.
Glad to be here. It's my second time here. You weren't here the first time, but I'm glad to be back.
Well, then this is going to be so much more enjoyable for you. And one of the many things that I can offer you some food if you would like.
Man, that barbecue smells real good. I got a lot of work to do, so I want to get it on my suit because I don't know how to be clean.
All right, we got a million different things that we're doing here, and obviously the NBA season kicks off tonight. We got not the World Series yet, but the League Championship Series rolling and all of the football and everything else. So let's jump headlong into this NBA situation, and let's start with the biggest picture. I was looking over some of the early notes this morning. Las Vegas says that Golden State is the most prohibitive favorite they've ever had in the preseason for any team in any sport. Mm-hmm. In your mind, barring a significant injury, and that's always the outlier in any sport, do you see any way anybody beats them this year?
Or the world ending. That's the only way they're gonna win it.
Maybe it's flat.
Exactly. That's the only way. I don't see nothing changing if those guys can stay healthy. You know, the points they scored in preseason, the numbers they put up in preseason shows that they're ready to pick up where they left off last year. So it's the sky's the limit for these teams. The only people that can beat them is them.
Now, for purpose of this conversation, let's set them aside.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the other teams, both in the East and West. Who do you like in either conference aside from Golden State?
Well, I love OKC. You know, I think if OKC can go out there and not worry about offense and just try to be a top 10 defensive team with the guys they have, they can learn how to score. I think they can play with anybody. And the same thing with Cleveland. I think Cleveland is better than last year. I think they have more professionals, more guys that don't mind being a star in their role, and got guys that can get the job done and better players around LeBron. I think if they can also become a great defensive team, they can be just as good as Golden State.
I have to stop you there. When you say Cleveland has more guys who are professionals, the obvious change they made was Kyrie Irving departing. So is that who you're referring to? Or are you taking that's going to be interpreted as a shot at Kyrie Irving? Did you mean it that way?
Not at all. Kyrie's my guy. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of Kyrie. I'm saying that to say that they have more guys on the team that can contribute. You know, they have a lot of guys last year that were on the team that were veterans, but they really can contribute. Kyle Korver's a great shooter, but it's a different shot in the fourth quarter with 30 seconds left. Mm-hmm. They have more guys that can make that shot. I have more confidence in Jeff Green. I have more confidence in Crowder. You know, I have more confidence in those guys. And I just think they have a better all-around team.
Dwayne Wade.
No shot at Kyrie. That's my guy.
Wade, Rose, et cetera. Obviously, all these guys. So how about Kyrie? So he goes back to Cleveland tonight. Mm-hmm. He'll hear it from the fans. That's obviously expected.
That's what you want, though.
I mean, I think that's fine, right? I don't. Well, you tell me because you're closer to the situation than I am. I feel like the LeBron return to Cleveland was almost an event unto itself. That was so singular because of his particular connection to that community and the really weird circumstances under which he left, meaning the actual departure with the television special and everything else. All the others have seemed like just sort of normal stuff. Do the players mind that? Like, I got a sense KD did mind it last year. You heard it from him. You heard it from his mom. You saw him put the cupcake line on the sneakers and everything else. I felt that did bother him a little bit. Do you think, for the most part, it bothers players?
Sometimes. I mean, a lot of guys, you know, they invest a lot in those cities. You know, we talking about big players. We ain't talking about guys that sit at the end of the bench. You know, we talking about players that these cities promote. So they have some love and some connections to these cities. So some things will bother them because they feel like they gave their all to the city. But with Kyrie, I'm not worried because I feel like the only thing that's changing with him, he's so young and so talented. The only thing that's changing with him is the jersey. He's going to go out there and play well. He don't have LeBron on his side, so it's going to be different for him. But he's still going to be a dominant player.
So what is he? I'm sorry, Booger, but what exactly is Kyrie Irving if you take all of the – and I don't want to call LeBron James a detriment or an impediment to his greatness because LeBron is not only a great an all-time great player, but he's so unselfish. Mm-hmm. But Kyrie obviously wants that ball in his hands all the time and everything else. What do you think is the ceiling for him? What can he be now?
The sky's the limit. I think if you can average 30 points with a guy like LeBron, imagine how dangerous you can be by yourself. You know, with other guys. Now, you're the guy and other guys are feeding off you, and you make other guys better. I'm excited to see it. Like I said, I'm a Kyrie fan, and it takes a lot for you to leave a guy like LeBron James and go on your own and want to stand on your own, and I commend him for it.
You know, I'm interested that you put Cleveland kind of on the pedestal in the East. When you look at Kyrie going to Boston, they only have 4 players that were on the team from last year. And a lot of people thinking they're the biggest challenger to the Cavaliers. How do you see the chemistry? And do you like Jason Tatum, the rookie that they have in Boston?
I love him. You know, when a guy like Paul Pierce speak high of him, you know, got a chance to see him play, you got to respect that. And I like the coach. You know, I like everything that they have around Kyrie. You know, they brought in the All-Star from Utah.
Gordon Hayward.
Gordon Hayward, of course, but I want to see what Horford does. I think he's gonna be big for them. You know, Rozier's coming off the bench. I think he's just like what's the guy that let go to Detroit? Bradley.
Yeah.
He's just like Bradley.
Avery.
Rozier, he's just like Bradley, so he can fill in. It's just what the role players do. I think Kyrie and Gordon Hayward are going to do their job. I think Tatum's going to come off the bench and do a great job as well.
Going out west, looking at Houston, James Harden is used to having the ball, and one of the reasons why he was up for the MVP is because he had the ball so much. Now you bring in Chris Paul, who's a point guard by nature. He needs the ball to run the offense. How do you see that dynamic working?
You know, I think we've seen a little bit in preseason. I think Chris Paul, for the most part, is just focused on making plays. We know he can score when he needs to, but I think James this year, he's not going to average close to a triple-double this year. He's not going to average 10 assists this year. It's all about him scoring and making plays, and I think Chris Paul's going to get more assists, but I think James is still going to be dominant all across the board.
That's a complicated one to me. If you look at those two guys, now history is filled with guys who have been willing to sublimate their games in the interest of being better playing with someone. The most famous original example that everyone points to is Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe, and they were rivals, and Monroe played with the ball, and then he came and they figured out a way to make it work, and now we're seeing it seems like pretty much every year as these super teams come together and guys figure out their roles. But Harden has made himself into what he is now by having the ball in his hands all the time. So how do you see that distribution working? Because Paul's a guy who has to play with the ball in his hands, and Harden's a guy who it feels like almost has to play with the ball in his hands. So who has the ball?
Well, I think it works good. I think it would have been a travesty if Carmelo would have went there. But see, now you have Chris Paul and James. There's nobody else on that team.
Yeah.
There's nobody else to make plays. So I think with just two guys being that ball dominant, I think it can work because everybody else wants to catch and shoot or catch a lob and lay up. Nobody else wants to handle the ball that much. So I think it'll work.
So who's a better team right now, in your mind, Oklahoma City or Houston?
I'm going to OKC. When you got Paul George, Russ, and Carmelo on the same team with one of the best big men that doesn't get enough credit in Steve Adams, I love it. I love OKC.
And so if you're going to say that, then you must be insinuating that Carmelo is going to be okay being the third best player. Not the third best scoring option, but the third best player on the team.
Well, I think when he got ready to sign that contract, got ready to take that trade to OKC, I think he knew that. I mean, in his mind, as smart as he is and as high as his basketball IQ is, he knows at this point in his career he's not better than Paul George or Russell Westbrook.
Right.
So I got to go there, score my points, get the ball, play, be the four, and just be a star in my role. And if he wants to win, that's the way he has to approach it.
That he feels to me like a guy. Now, again, Carmelo has been what he has been. He's walking into the Hall of Fame the second he becomes eligible. 100% deserves it. But he is a guy who the one thing left he can do is the one thing he seems to like doing the most. Like, I'm going to make a ridiculous comparison here because he's a greater player historically than this. But if he could be Vinnie Johnson, he could be the microwave. He could just be the guy who say, all right, right now, just give him the ball. We need a stretch of 4 minutes here where he'll just carry our offense all by himself. And I still think that maybe with the exception of Kevin Durant, I'm not sure there's another player in the league who'll do that better than Carmelo can do it.
And you're right. He's one of those guys that can definitely do that. But that's why I have them high this season, because in the playoffs, the game slows all the way down.
Right.
They have three guys that they can put on that block, post up, or get a bucket and just ISO. I love that. That's why I want them to just focus on defense, because scoring points is not going to be a problem for them.
Steven Jackson is here in studio with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts, which means the team that we left out in the conversation is San Antonio. And Greg Popovich, for those of you who haven't seen it, is extraordinarily outspoken in a variety of different things. They're making a lot more news off the court than they're making on the court right now. But they bring back a guy who, in my opinion, is the second best player in the sport, in Kawhi Leonard. And I don't know what would have happened last year in the playoffs if he didn't get hurt. They would have won Game 1. Maybe they wouldn't have won any more games in that series. We'll never know.
Right.
But what of them? It feels like all the off-season attention, it went to Houston with getting Paul, and it went to OKC with all the guys they brought in, and San Antonio sort of forgotten. What are they now?
This is every year. This is what they want. They want to fly under the radar. They don't want to be in the media. They don't want to be talked about. This is what Pop does. He gets his players together. He finds a diamond in the rough. He brings in Rudy Gay, rests Kawhi, makes sure he's ready to go. You know, I got Pop for Coach of the Year again this year, because I feel like when nobody's talking about him, that's when he's at his best. He's getting his soldiers ready to go to war, and they're gonna be ready.
What do you make of the LaMarcus Aldridge extension? Because he got a lot of flack over the last couple of years, not being the dominant guy that people thought he was going to be when he got to San Antonio, perennial 20-10 guy. Now you get the extension. I believe it was 74 over 3 or something like that. What do you make of LaMarcus Aldridge at this point in his career?
Well, you know, I'm glad they locked him in. I think it's good for him because they need him. You know, Tim Duncan speaks highly of him. Tim Duncan loves him, and I respect the world out of Tim Duncan. But I want him to care more. I want him to they paying you all this money. Learn how to go left. Like, you know, like you're too good and they're paying you too much money for you to be in the NBA to not go left. You know, this has been the knock on him his whole career. Everybody knows his moves. He's not adding anything to his game. And I think at this point, add something to your game, get better. I honestly don't think he cares enough. I love the fact that they gave him an extension. I love the fact that he's in San Antonio because I think if any coach can get the best out of him, it's Pop. But he has to show he's hungry. He has to work and add stuff to his game because I think his game hasn't gotten better since probably the last 3-4 years. It's been the same.
Mike and Mike, we're talking basketball with Stephen Jackson in our studio. The NBA is back on ESPN Radio tonight. We have the Warriors taking on Chris Paul and the Rockets with our coverage starting 9:30 Eastern on most of these ESPN radio stations. So let me ask you about two teams. We're talking about the contenders now, and I think we've pretty much – is there anyone we've left out? Does Washington belong in that conversation?
I think so.
They belong in the discussion with the legitimate contenders in the East.
Yeah, for the performance they put up last year in the playoffs, they only going to get better. I think John Wall, with his contract and his confidence coming in, I think they're going to be best. I think they're going to compete for the East.
Does Toronto belong in that conversation?
I like DeMar DeRozan. I just don't like that team. I don't think so.
To me, it's a jump shooting team.
Yeah,
and
I don't
to
like
me,
that
it's
team.
hard to win. I know everybody's going to point to Golden State, but Golden State is a terrific defensive team. That's the reason they can get away with being a jump shooting team. I just think Toronto, they struggle when that shot is off. When Kyle Lowry and DeRozan shot off, they struggle to get buckets.
Yeah, and like Golden State now, you got possibly the best player in the world with if you talk about him and LeBron, KD. He's the second best defender on that team. That says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, it's one thing to be a jump shooting team, and it's another thing when it's Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson taking the jump shots. That makes them all of a sudden look a whole lot better. Okay, so those are the contenders. The two most compelling teams to me in the league, because I have no idea what to expect them to be, are Minnesota and Philadelphia. Let's start with the Timberwolves. With the acquisition of Butler from Chicago, another year for Karl Anthony Towns. They give the money to Wiggins, and on they go. What are they? What are the Timberwolves this year?
Well, I'm excited to see. I mean, if you think about it, without Jimmy Butler, this is one of the teams that played Golden State the toughest the last 2 years without Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, but they won they won like 30 games last year.
Right. But I'm just rating their performance off against the championship team.
Right.
And adding Jimmy Butler now, I think Tibbs and Jimmy, I think they know how to get to these young kids. You know, the passion Jimmy plays with, I think he has some of me in him. Jimmy plays so hard and fierce on the court. I think if he can get Wiggins to play like that, Towns already has a little edge. You know, he's fine. But if they can get Wiggins to play with more passion, the same thing that LaMarcus Aldridge needs, more fire, you know, put some gunpowder in his food or something. These guys, they need that. If they can get that out of Wiggins, I think this team can make some damage in the West.
What does that mean? What is
make the playoffs? Make the playoffs. I don't think top 3, top 4 team, but definitely 5, 6 seed.
All right, and then how about the Sixers with the huge money they give to Embiid, who, for my money, if you could promise me he was going to stay healthy, and that's the biggest if maybe in the entire sport right now, I'd tell you I might take him over any of the other big guys, you know, the young big guys in the league right now. But he's played 31 games in 3 years. If he stays healthy, what are the Sixers this year?
They're great. I mean, if they can get him healthy and get Simmons healthy, you know, Simmons is like a left-hand LeBron out there right now in preseason. I love what they're doing there, you know, and I just trust anything the Colangelos are doing. You know, they've been in this sport so long, they know what to do. They have a great coach, and Brett Brown that's been in the San Antonio system, so it works. I think if they can get these young guys healthy, they'll be all right.
And more importantly, for the people on the West Coast, Lonzo Ball, what do we expect from him, both on and off the court with Dad LeVar?
Well, for the most part, the only thing I like about the whole situation, and I really don't have too much to say, is I love the kid's basketball IQ. You know, every father should support their kid. You know, every father should want the best for their kid, but it's a way to do it. And you can't tell a father how to do it, you know, at the end of the day. But I love the kid's basketball IQ, and I want to see him do good.
Mike and Mike, Stephen Jackson's in our studio here. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. All right, here's a fun one for both of you guys.
Yes.
I'm letting you start a team right now, and I'm giving the option. You can either start it with Karl Anthony Towns, the Greek Freak, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, or Kristaps Porzingis. Which guy are you taking?
Oh, that's easy for me.
Easy?
Yeah, it's easy.
You're going to take. I know who you're going to
Yeah,
take.
you give me them names again.
All right, so it's basically all these guys who are 7 feet tall and do ridiculous things.
Okay.
So it's Karl Anthony Towns, it's
Okay.
the Greek Freak, it's Anthony Davis, it's Joel Embiid, and it's Porzingis.
I'm going AD.
See, I'm going to Greek Freak because
I knew you were going to take the Greek Freak.
because
Booger loves the Greek Freak.
well, because,
As he should. He should.
right. And if you look at AD, they're saying the same things about the Greek Freak they said about AD, but we said it about AD, I feel like, for the last couple years. Like,
Yeah.
when has he been able to, you know what, give me 2 other guys around AD and he'll take you to a championship. I think the Greek Freak, we're saying that about him. He's young, he's coming, he's going to be there. I think he needs to take another step, but I feel more confident at this point in the Greek Freak, where he is, his versatility, than I do in AD.
Yeah, with the Greek Freak, I expect more of a KD type player, be able to shoot. He definitely have to get his jump shot better.
Yeah.
But I think he's one of those guys that can be able to do it all. I look at AD as the next Tim Duncan. You know, can shoot it off the glass, can do a little bit of everything. He's just way more athletic. You know, but both of these guys, you know, you can't lose either way.
What are they going to be now? I mean, if the New Orleans with the experiment they have there.
I'm so glad you asked me that.
Go ahead.
The reason, well, you know, they need a small forward. And what better small forward than a guy who's led the big 3 in scoring than Steven Jackson? You know, that's definitely what they need.
I like it, Jack.
You know what I mean? But like they had Andy Rondo. Hopefully he can get back healthy. I think that was a big piece for them because I think with Boogie and 80, they respect him, and he's a guy that can make plays and make these guys better. Drew Holiday at the 2, I love that. I love that move. I think they have a big missing spot at the small forward. They need a small forward that can shoot and that can defend. I don't think they have that, but what they building there, if they can get Rondo healthy, they're building something nice.
Now, Jack, here's my question. Are you still willing to defend?
That's what I still can do.
Okay.
You know, I can't really do too much of off pick and roll and stuff like that, but defending and spotting up shooting, I think I can still hold that down.
Okay, I like it.
People like me, geeks like me, were very upset last year about all the resting, and I don't know.
Me too. I'm a geek too. I hate it.
I hated it. We had Adam Silver on yesterday talking about it. He's talking about it, the changes they've made to the scheduling, no 4 games in 5 nights, a lot fewer back-to-backs and all the rest of that. Do you think it will make an appreciable difference? Do you think we'll see less of it?
I think so. You know, I don't like it. You know, I was one of those guys. I never wanted to come out of the game. I wanted to play every night if we could. You know, I've always was at the top of the league in minutes. So I didn't like it. I think they're getting paid more money. To my mind, it should be more games. The more money, the more games. So I don't agree with it, but you know, they definitely pacifying these guys right now.
And how about the tanking? That's the other thing that Adam talked about with us yesterday. It drives me crazy. I mean, watching these teams that are doing everything they can to try and lose. And this goes for all sports, by the way, and football does the same thing. I think that we need to sit back. We need to rethink the way we do this stuff because we're incentivizing losing. If you can't win a championship, the best thing you can be is the worst team in the sport. I'm from New York. I'm a Jet fan my whole life.
Right.
And like all the Jet fans I know are sort of torn between, isn't this fun that they're winning, and oh my God, they're screwing themselves because they really needed to be 0-16 this year and get a quarterback. You should never want to lose. And so they're trying to make steps in that direction. Do you think that the little changes they made to the draft will help? They don't take effect for another 2 years.
Yeah.
And could you think of anything else they could do? Because it drives me crazy.
No, I really can't think of anything. I'm with you on that, though. I don't respect tanking or losing. I mean, you're disrespecting the game, you're disrespecting your fans, and you're disrespecting those other guys that worked all summer that come here to win. So anybody who's at the top making those decisions or who's putting their hand on it saying we have to tank, those guys don't.
You know, guys,
respect it.
y'all said it about tanking, but we're seeing a real life case now of the Astros. If the Astros win a championship this year, that's a case of a team that just went to the bottom, came back up through the draft, and they could win a title. And depending on what the 76ers do, they did the same thing. Like the process is we're going to tank, we're going to get all these draft picks, we're going to be good. So if you're a fan out there, which would you rather have? A team that's kind of so-so or a team that stinks and you know in 4 to 5 years they're going to be really, really good?
No, you're making my point for me. The Cubs are a perfect example of that as well, winning the championship last year by being as bad as they could for as long as they could. It's the system. I don't blame the teams for doing it. That's what I mean. Change the system so you stop incentivizing losing.
Right.
If the best thing you can be is awful, if you're 100% right, if the fans are screaming, be awful, right? I mean, like it's so counterintuitive. The fans should be out there booing when you win.
Right.
But the reality is, you should be trying to win. They should be making their incentive to be to win every single game. Steven Jackson, this is a delight, and I hope that we will do it again. I'm sorry I can't interest you in some of the sport because